Dude, check this out. She's absolutely unreal. I barely looked up from my coffee as my friend Jake shoved his phone in my face. He was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning, eyes practically sparkling with excitement. I already knew what this was about. Jake had an unhealthy obsession with Instagram models. Every other day he'd discover a new one, fawning over their flawless bodies and over-the-top captions. I, on the other hand, never cared for that stuff. I was the kind of guy who appreciated real relationships, real connections. I'd been with my girlfriend Emily for over a year, and I was more than happy with her. She was elegant, mature, the kind of woman you bring home to meet your parents. I didn't need to waste my time gawking at women who edited their faces into oblivion for likes. So, naturally, I waved him off. Yeah, another Instagram model. What a shock. Jake laughed, nudging his phone closer to me. No, seriously, bro. This girl. Next level. Look at her body, man. Insane. And that little beauty mark right there? Super hot. That made me pause. Not because of what he said. Jake was always saying dumb stuff like that, but because of how specific he was. A beauty mark. Somewhere deep in my brain, alarm bells started ringing. I sighed, finally glancing at the screen, prepared to humor him, and then everything inside me froze, because staring back at me was a woman I knew. I didn't see her face. It was carefully hidden in every picture, but I didn't need to. I saw the curve of her collarbone, the tiny mole just above her ribs, the way her fingers curled slightly when she posed. I had seen those details 1,000 times, because I'd kissed that collarbone. I had traced that mole with my fingertips. I'd held those hands in mine every single day. This wasn't just some Instagram model. This might be my girlfriend. Oh, I tried to tell myself it was just a coincidence. The woman in the picture couldn't be Emily. I mean, sure, the beauty mark, the way she held her fingers when she posed, the elegant curve of her collarbone, it all looked eerily familiar. But that wasn't enough to confirm anything, right? Still, I couldn't shake the unease that had settled deep in my chest. I forced a chuckle, masking my discomfort. "What's her handle?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. Jake smirked, clearly entertained by my sudden interest. "Oh, look at you, finally joining the dark side." He turned his phone so I could see the username. I read it once, then again. It was a name I had never seen before. It wasn't Emily's usual style. It was edgy, mysterious, completely opposite of the polished, graceful image she always presented. I pulled out my phone and searched for the account. Private. Of course it was. But something else made my stomach twist. The follower count. Over 80,000. Emily wasn't an influencer. She barely used her personal Instagram, only posting carefully curated photos at weddings or brunches with her friends. So how did she have this many followers on a secret account? My pulse quickened as I scrolled through the bio looking for clues. No real name. No links to her main account. Just a cryptic tagline and a string of emojis. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the follow button. But if I sent a request, she might realize I was on to her. I needed another way in. I glanced back at Jake, who was still grinning, completely oblivious to my inner turmoil. "So how'd you even find this account?" I asked, keeping my tone light. He shrugged. "Dude, she popped up on my Explore page. I guess the algorithm just knows my type." He chuckled, scrolling through more posts. "Man, if I had the cash, I'd totally slide into her DMs." I clenched my jaw. DMS? I needed to see more. Then an idea hit me. Emily had another phone. A work phone. She never used it around me unless she was answering a quick call, but I knew it existed. What if she was using that phone to run this account? That would explain why I had never seen notifications pop up when we were together. My hands tightened into fists under the table. If I was right, this wasn't just some side hobby, and this was a completely separate life she was leading. I forced a laugh, shaking my head as if I had lost interest. "Yeah, man, wild stuff." Jake smirked. "Told you. You gotta keep up, bro." I let him believe he had won this round, but in reality, this was far from over. Emily had secrets, and I was going to uncover every single one of them. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to Emily's soft breathing beside me. I could feel the warmth of her body, the gentle rhythm of her breath. Everything about this moment should have been comforting, but I felt nothing but cold suspicion. Every fiber of my being screamed at me that something wasn't right. I kept replaying the image in my head, the Instagram post, the familiar beauty mark, the delicate way she curled her fingers. all the tiny details that belonged to Emily, and yet I still wasn't ready to accept it. I needed more. I turned my head slightly, watching her in the dim glow of the bedside lamp. She looked so peaceful, so innocent, a perfect illusion. The woman I thought I knew didn't have a secret Instagram account with tens of thousands of followers. The woman I thought I knew wasn't getting messages from strangers offering her money. But if I was wrong, I had to be sure. The next day, I started my search. Slowly, methodically. I didn't want to act suspicious. If Emily caught on, she could erase everything before I had a chance to find out the truth, so I played it cool. That morning, she left for work like usual, kissing me goodbye, telling me she'd be back late because she had dinner with the girls. I forced a smile, nodding as if I believed her, but as soon as she walked out the door, I got to work. I checked her laptop first. Nothing. No saved logins for the fake Instagram, no suspicious bookmarks. Next, I went through our shared bank statements looking for anything unusual. At first glance, everything seemed normal, but then I noticed something strange. Emily had been making large cash deposits into her personal account. Where was the money coming from? She worked a standard corporate job, nothing that should involve random cash payments. My chest tightened. This was real, this was happening, but I still needed proof. Then something clicked in my mind. Emily had a second drawer in her closet, a place she always kept locked. She had told me it was just for old keepsakes, but I had never actually seen inside. I went to her closet and pulled the drawer handle. Locked, of course. I searched around, feeling along the edges. Then under a pile of scarves, my fingers brushed against something small and metal. A key. My pulse pounded as I slid it into the lock and turned it. Click. The drawer opened, revealing a phone. Not her regular phone. A different one. I picked it up, hard hammering. It was turned off. I took a deep breath, pressing the power button. Then the screen lit up. The first thing I saw was a notification from Instagram. A message request. I swallowed hard and unlocked the phone, typing in her usual password. It worked. And what I found inside made my stomach turn. The secret Instagram account. Hundreds of messages. Men flirting, men paying her, men asking for more. Emily responding coyly, teasing them, leading them on just enough to keep the money flowing. I love the mystery. Let's keep this between us. You know the rules. No face, no real name, just fun. I scrolled through endless conversations, each more sickening than the last. Some of these men had been sending her money for months. Some even thought they had a chance with her. My hands shook as I checked the transactions. Thousands of dollars. This wasn't just a side hobby. This was a full-on double life. I clenched my jaw, rage building inside me. Emily had looked me in the eye, kissed me, told me she loved me, all while doing this behind my back. And worse, she had never planned to stop. I exhaled sharply, forcing myself to think clearly. Confronting her alone wasn't enough. I needed her to feel the weight of her actions. I was going to expose her. To everyone. That night, I set my plan in motion. I invited her entire family over for dinner that weekend. Emily had no idea what was coming. She walked in, all smiles, greeting her parents with hugs and kisses. She kissed me too, like she always did, as if nothing was wrong. I played along, kept my expression neutral, kept my voice calm. She had no clue. We sat around the table, conversations flowing effortlessly. Emily laughed, chatted about work, about her latest yoga obsession. She was completely at ease. I let her enjoy it. Then at the perfect moment, I reached for my phone. "Emily, I found something interesting today," I said casually, swiping through my screen. Emily turned to me, curious. "Oh? What is it?" I turned my phone toward her. The messages. Her face instantly drained of color. Silence. Her mother frowned, glancing between us. "What's going on?" I didn't say a word. I just kept scrolling, letting them all see. Emily's father leaned in, his brows furrowing as he read the screen. The room grew colder by the second. Then her mother gasped, covering her mouth. "Emily!" Her father's voice was dangerously low. "What the hell is this?" Emily's hands were shaking. I don't... Her eyes darted to me, pleading. "Please, can we talk in private?" I leaned back, crossing my arms. "Why?" "You weren't exactly keeping this private, were you?" Her father's face hardened. "You've been... selling yourself?" Her mother's breath hitched pure devastation written all over her face. Emily opened her mouth and closed it, completely at a loss. I let the silence stretch, watching her crumble under the weight of her own lies. Finally, she turned to me, her voice barely above a whisper. You were never supposed to find out." I let out a cold laugh. "That's your excuse?" Her father stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is disgusting. Emily, how could you do this?" Emily looked like she wanted to disappear. She had been exposed, completely and utterly. And me? I was done. I stood up, grabbing my jacket. "Good luck explaining this to your parents," I said, walking toward the door. "Because we're done." Emily sobbed, calling after me, but I didn't stop. I walked out of that house and never looked back. I walked out of that house and into the cold night air, my hands clenched into fists as my heart was pounding, not from regret, not from sadness, but from the sheer finality of it all. It was over. A part of me had thought I would feel relief, that after everything I had uncovered I would feel some kind of satisfaction in knowing I had exposed the truth. But standing there, hearing the muffled voices from inside the house, Emily's sobs, her mother's quiet gasps of disbelief, it didn't feel like a victory. It just felt empty. I made my way to my car, opened the door with more force than necessary. As I sat down, gripping the steering wheel, I realized just how much of my life had been built on a complete lie. The woman I loved, the woman I had imagined a future with, had been deceiving me from the very start. And the worst part, she never planned on stopping. I stared out through the windshield, watching the streetlights cast long shadows against the pavement. My hands were still shaking. I ran them over my face, exhaling deeply. I had always imagined something different for myself. I had pictured a life with Emily, a home filled with warmth and love. I had imagined us picking out a house together, walking through different rooms, talking about paint colors, arguing over whether or not we really needed a kitchen island. I had imagined Sunday mornings with coffee and the newspaper, lazy afternoons spent curled up on the couch, watching the same dumb shows we always laughed about. I had imagined getting down on one knee, feeling my pulse race as I opened a small velvet box, watching her eyes light up the way they always did when she was happy. I had imagined a wedding, her father shaking my hand, her mother crying happy tears, our friends raising their glasses in a toast to our future, and later maybe even kids. A life, a future built on love, trust, and honesty. But all of that had been an illusion. The woman I had built that dream around had never truly existed. The Emily I knew, the one I had trusted, loved, and thought I would spend forever with, was just a version she had crafted, a version she had chosen to show me while she hid an entirely different life behind my back. I turned the key in the ignition but didn't pull away just yet. My phone vibrated on the seat beside me. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Emily. I ignored it, but then another buzz. And another. Then a text. "Please, just talk to me. I can explain." I stared at the words, my jaw tightening. Explain? Explain what? That she had been leading a double life? That she had been lying to me, to her parents, to everyone who thought they knew her? That it wasn't personal? That it was just something she did on the side? As if that made any of this better? I locked my phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat. I didn't need her explanations. I didn't need anything from her anymore. I put my car in drive and pulled away, leaving Emily and her carefully constructed world of lies behind me. The drive home felt longer than usual. The city lights blurred together as I replayed everything in my mind, trying to understand how I had been so blind. I had never been the jealous type, never the kind of guy who checked his girlfriend's phone or questioned where she was going. I had trusted her. Completely. And maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I had been naive to think that love alone was enough to guarantee honesty. When I finally pulled into my apartment parking lot, I sat there for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel. The silence in the car felt deafening. I turned off the engine, got out, and made my way up the stairs. As soon as I stepped inside, I was hit with the scent of her perfume lingering in the air. Emily had been here just that morning, making coffee, kissing me goodbye. It felt surreal knowing that just a few hours ago, I had still been living in ignorance, believing my life was exactly as it should be. I walked into the bedroom, staring at the empty side of the bed. I had never noticed before how much space she took up in my life. Her books on the nightstand, her shoes by the door, the sweater she always stole from me draped over the chair. I clenched my jaw and started moving, grabbing anything that belonged to her and shoving it into a bag. The next morning I went no contact. At first it was difficult, not because I missed her, That part disappeared the second I found out who she really was, but because Emily wouldn't stop trying to reach me. Calls, texts, voicemails. Then she started sending emails. "You have to understand. I didn't mean for this to hurt you. Please don't tell anyone else. My life will be ruined. I only did it for the money. It was just a side thing. It meant nothing." Each message was more desperate than the last, begging for forgiveness, pleading for a second chance. But what got to me the most wasn't the apologies. It was the fact that she was still trying to control the narrative. She didn't say, "I made a terrible mistake." She said, "You have to understand." She didn't say, "I betrayed you." She said, "It meant nothing." Even after being caught, even after watching her family's entire perception of her crumble right in front of her eyes, she still refused to take accountability. And that just proved one thing to me. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was just sorry she got caught. I didn't have to do anything. The damage was already done. Her family was shattered. Her mother, who had once gushed about how proud she was of her daughter, couldn't even look at her. Her father, who had always spoken so highly of her accomplishments, cut her off completely. Her parents stopped supporting her financially. They made it clear. If she wanted to live a double life, she could do it without their help. Emily tried to control the damage, tried to explain it away. But word spreads fast. Her friends found out. People from her work found out. The perfect, classy image she had worked so hard to build. Gone. And just like that, her world collapsed. It took a while for me to process everything. I wasn't just grieving the loss of a relationship. I was grieving the person I thought she was. Because the Emily I knew, the one who sat across from me at dinner, who held my hand on long drives, who talked about the future like it was something real, she never actually existed. She was just a role that Emily played. And once I understood that, moving on became easier. A few months later, I got one last email from Emily. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. I know you'll never forgive me, but I needed you to hear that. I was selfish, and I hurt you. I have to live with that now." I read the words twice. Then I deleted the email. Some people don't deserve closure, and I wasn't about to give it to her, because in the end, she made her choices, and I made mine, to walk away. Sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who deceive us the deepest. It's easy to assume that love equals honesty, that just because you give someone your heart, they will treat it with care. But the truth is, some people will take that love and exploit it for as long as they can, as long as they think they won't get caught. Looking back, I realized that the red flags were always there. The late nights, out with vague explanations, the way she was always a little too protective over her phone, the small inconsistencies in her stories, the times when things didn't quite add up, but I brushed them off because I trusted her. That's what trust does. It makes you give people the benefit of the doubt even when your gut tells you something is off. I used to believe that love meant never questioning the person you're with, that if you started doubting them, then the relationship was already doomed. But I see it differently now. Love isn't about blind faith. Love is about respect, transparency, mutual honesty. If someone truly cares about you, they won't put you in a position where you have to wonder what else they're hiding. Emily had plenty of chances to tell me the truth. She could have been honest from the start. She could have told me about her secret Instagram account, about the money, about the lies. But she didn't, because she thought she could have both lives. A picture-perfect relationship with me while keeping her secret world intact. That was her mistake. She underestimated me. She underestimated the truth. But the thing about the truth is that it always comes out one way or another. You can hide behind fake accounts, cover your tracks, tell yourself that as long as no one finds out, you're not really hurting anyone. But lies have a way of unraveling. And when they do, the damage is irreversible. I won't lie and say this experience didn't change me. It did. It made me question my ability to trust, made me more cautious about who I let into my life. But it also made me stronger. It taught me that it's better to face an uncomfortable truth than to live in a comfortable lie. It reminded me that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. So let me ask you, if you found out your partner had been living a double life, would you forgive them? Or would you leave, knowing that once trust is broken, it's almost impossible to rebuild?